Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to an analysis of EOM 10. Let's start with the VARC sectional. So, was one of the easiest VARC sectionals that we've seen in the various CAT papers, the various mocks that you've written so far. Definitely by far an easy one. Yes, there were 4 passages. The 4 passages might have challenged you a little, but if you look at the difficulty level of the passages as well as the questions, you will have found this very easy. Let's understand what the paper looked like. So, yes, again, a format on the lines of the new CAT pattern, 25 questions, 40 minutes. 18 questions of RC, wherein we had 2 RCs with 6 questions each, 2 RCs with 3 questions each, 3 out of context questions, and 4 parajumbling questions. So the overall difficulty level can be very clearly stated as easy to moderate. Slightly on the moderate side, but clearly something that can be regarded as easy to moderate. What were the RCs? The first one, a very short passage, 375 words, pretty short one, followed by 3 questions, was from biology, how bees manage their energy supplies. Not only did it make for very interesting reading, it wasn't difficult to relate to. Yes, the inference questions, one of them, especially the first one, because you would invariably mark the wrong option there. You would take an option that appeared to be correct, whereas the correct option was something else, because that which appeared to be correct had a catch there, right? So the first one was a little challenging, but the other 2 were very easy. You can see that one is marked easy and the other is moderate. The shortness of the passage, the kind of topic that we dealt with, and the fact that all 3 were inferences made this rather doable. Yes, you would get trapped here in question 1, trick there, but then the others you could definitely manage. What about RC2? Nuclear weapons and attempts at non-proliferation, how the attempts that the various nations are making are not, not up to the mark. Their attempts are not, do not involve their heart and soul, and therefore there is something that is, not going right. So a very lengthy one. I don't think you've seen a passage of this length in any of the EOMs before this. 790 words with a brief poem in between. So here was a combination of a lengthy passage with a poem in between. 6 questions. Not that the topic was difficult. Initially, when you started, the language might have stumped you a little as to, what is going on, what is the discussion. But by the time you come to the second paragraph, post that poem, the second paragraph, you're able to figure out that this is exactly the discussion, right? The 6 questions. Now, we'll talk of the strategy in a while. So 6 questions here, you can see 4 of them are inferences, 1 is easy. There's just 1 that is marked difficult here. In fact, all of the other questions are marked moderate. There was even a specific detailed question, but all the others are inferences, moderate inferences, not something that would stump you, not something that had very difficult options to be eliminated. If your reading of this passage was clear, if you picked up the main idea, all of these questions would be fairly easy. What did RC3 look like? Once again, a very short one, extremely short one, 280 words. But yes, psychology, a little abstract, particularly something about the transcendent. If you read the first paragraph well, clearly the first 2 lines, and then went on to read the first few lines of that second paragraph, particularly where the author talks of what are the inconsistencies that Carl Jung's idea of the function of the transcendent has. There's this particular line that he says that this is how Carl Jung defines the function of the transcendent. He views this, he portrays it this way. And, all the other constructs that he has in this subject, all the other ideas that he has regarding psychology are connected with this idea of transcendent. And therefore, there are a lot of inconsistencies there. The moment you pick that up, the rest of it seems okay, right? But yes, If you had to make a choice, maybe you would skip this, because not only is the passage heavy, abstract psychology tends to be abstract, uh, particularly this kind of psychology where you're talking of hardcore psychology, psychology as a subject per se. The questions were also rather challenging. There was this logical structure question which was fairly challenging. The inference was also a difficult one. So if you to choose, maybe you would skip this. Okay. Next, the fourth RC, again on psychology. But look at the market difference. Here we're talking of popular psychology. When we talk of self-help books like, the Robin Sharmas of the world or Dale Carnegie kind of books, we're talking of popular psychology, something that is relatable to the public, not abstract, hardcore psychology with a lot of psychological jargon. We're not talking of that. So we're talking of using the face as an indicator of a man's personality, which is a specific field in psychology, and what does the author thinks about it. So he presents multiple people's viewpoints and what he believes about it. Made for very interesting reading, particularly after a while, after a few paragraphs, you could very well relate to what was going on. So a very easy passage. Yes, the length of the passage might have held you back, right? Because it's not about scrolling down a couple of paragraphs. This is scrolling down a multiple number of paragraphs, so that would have held you back. 835 words, something really lengthy. But the interest of that passage, the interesting topic it was, it would have made you read this, even though you would feel that the time is ticking by. This is something that I would definitely have taken. Particularly, there's that narrative. He starts with the idea of Orwell ka quote hai. And then, it's the first person narrative, I. The moment we see something like that, you feel this is relatable because somebody is talking to you, right? So a narrative this was. Look at the question, 6 questions again. So one easy question and all the rest are moderate. In fact, some of these questions come close to being easy. They have been marked moderate only because the length of the passage is such that getting back to these details or scanning for these details would be a challenge. That's the only reason why they've all been marked moderate. Otherwise, a really doable one. If you miss this, probably your strategy here went wrong. Okay. Now, what about the last few set of questions? Out of context, 3 and 4 parajumbling. Now, 5 sentences, both in out of context as well as in parajumbling. But these 5 sentences, the language, particularly of parajumbles, was moderate, right? Whereas out of context could still be regarded as moderate to difficult. There was that last one about legal right, etc. That made for slightly difficult reading. But the, parajumbling, the language of parajumbles was more to do with, the newspaper language, editorial language, ed language, which is again relatable slightly these days for you because you've been doing so much reading. And if you are able to get through those lengthy sentences, the sentences look lengthy, and therefore you would have got this feeling, no, this is difficult, but then they were not. There were at least 2 moderate. One was easy, that's sitter, absolute sitter. I mean, if you miss this, you would really not forgive yourself after coming out of the exam, because this was such an easy one, right? 5 sentences, very light sentences. The connects were so easy. I mean, if there were something lighter than easy, I would have marked it as lighter than easy. If there was one such parameter, it was so damn easy. Yes, the 4th question was a slightly challenging one, but apart from that, parajumbles were something you should have taken, particularly because they didn't come at the end. They came between the passages, the first passage, and then you had 2 parajumbles appearing, and then another passage, then another 2 parajumbles. So, you would invariably come across them. It is not that you had to go to the end and search for them. You would invariably notice them and therefore take them. That would have been a good thing for you. Agar aapne pause karke dekha, to yes, it would have been a good thing. The out of context, on the other hand, 5 sentences, there was that one question which was difficult, legal rights and all that, ethical rights. But the other 2 questions were really easy, were really moderate and could be taken. Okay. Now let's look at what our strategy should have been. 40 minutes, 2 lengthy passages with 6 questions, and two short passages with 3 questions each. And then again, the parajumbles didn't come across as very difficult. Out of context, which was at the end, again, wasn't, two were moderate. So what do you choose here? When you feel that the lengthy passages, maybe that nuclear non-proliferation passage, you might have hesitated to get into that because aapko laga hoga that, the first few lines are heavy. I can't understand this. This is something I shouldn't get into. But this is exactly where our decisions, sometimes our judgments can go wrong. Just these two passages, even if you had skipped the B's one, ideal case may, if you're looking at a higher score, you will have to get into the B's passage too. Okay, that's the first one. And then the non-proliferation nuclear warfare one, as well as the last one. All right, the last one, which had to do with studying the face and identifying, relating people's personalities with the face. So tough call here, because the length would have held you back and you would have been tempted to get into that abstract RC, kyunki ye short hai, let me finish this. But that would have been a bad choice and would have backfired. So yes, ideally, this is what your number of easy and moderate questions look like. 15 moderate questions, just a 6, and it's not even moderate to difficult. The 6 questions are actually difficult. Let me make this clear to you. The 6 questions are the difficult ones, moderate 15, and 4 easy questions. We've not come across one such paper so far. So that makes for 19 doable questions, 19. And in fact, if one or two of you are able to, give the time for those parajumbles, even that is fine, which means this is definitely a high scoring paper because we've regarded it as moderate. So where do you stand as far as 98 percentile is concerned? At a 20 attempts, roughly about a 19 to 20 attempts, and an 80% accuracy of those attempts, we're looking at a very high score of 45. So if 45 is a 98 percentile, you can see that 48 makes for a 99 percentile, because there were a set number of questions that good and better than good students could take, average, above average students could take. Now, when it comes to the higher percentiles, if you wanted to cross a 99 point, 0.1 plus, then you would have to really stretch yourself, because we are looking at more number of attempts. Not that they weren't possible. As I told you, there were just about 6 tough questions. And even those questions somebody could get into. So a 99 is a 48, 99 percentile. That is a score of 48 is a 99 percentile. A score of 53 is a 99.5. A score of 61 is a 100 percentile. At a score of 39, okay, very high again for a 95 percentile, but there were so many questions that anybody could take. 39 is a score for a 95 percentile. 35 is your score for a 90 percentile. Again, we've not seen this high. I think our 90 percentiles have largely been around 30, 31, 32, 33, 35 is a new high here. And at 29, again a high. So far, I think in the last few mocks, we've been speaking of a score of 28, not more than 28 as an 80 percentile, even less than that at times, but a 29 could fetch you an 80 percentile. So a different experience. If there are students who haven't taken this mock, and I believe that exams and college commitments, a lot of such things might have held you back, but a mock that you shouldn't have missed, at least for the VRC sectional, because you would have felt good after this. Definitely a feel-good sectional. It would have challenged your judgment and decision making, but definitely something that you should have, you should have enjoyed taking and felt good at the end of it. All right. So thank you. That's all from me as far as the verbal sectional is concerned. You know what's coming up, from tomorrow. It's already activated in your account, your EOM Exact Cat 1 paper. So we hope you have a great experience with that as well. I'm handing over this to Shivam sir. Shivam sir, kindly take over. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, madam. Can you please make me a host, ma'am? Good evening, students. Welcome to the live analysis of EOM 10 quant section. So this is how we'll proceed. QA section. We start with topic distribution, question mapping in terms of easy, moderate, and difficult question. We'll discuss the rationale behind classifying the question as easy, moderate, and difficult. We'll discuss expected attempts and the scores, and finally, expected percentiles. So let's start with the topic distribution. This is how EOM 10 looked like in terms of quant section. There were good number of questions from numbers and surds and indices 4 and 3 respectively, and then 2 questions each from polynomials, logarithms, circles, probability, coordinate geometry, and there was a question from clocks and calendars as well. Also, 1 questions from quadratic equation, inequalities, set theory, time and distance, chords and polygons, ratio proportion, and triangles each. You'll find that a lot of topics on arithmetic are missing here. So there is no percentage, profit loss, simple interest. In fact, the percentage as a unit was completely absent, and less number of questions from the rest of the arithmetic section, like nothing from average, partnership, time and work. Okay, but good weightage on numbers and a few parts of algebra. Let's look at the question mapping. There was the first question on time and distance, which was based on linear race, where it was a 10-kilometer race, and A was able to beat B by 2 kilometers. A was able to beat C by 4 kilometers. So we had to find out by what kilometers B can beat C. So anybody who is well versed with the basics of linear race, okay, and who can equate the numbers easily, can solve this question. A question on quadratic equation where the expression was equal to 1. So any cat taker would have understood here that any number raised to 0 is always 1. So you could have straight away equated the power, which is 2x square minus 7x plus 5 with 0. And you could have got the solution. In fact, getting the solution was not even a question over here. We just have to find out the number of solutions. So you just find out delta and check whether it is greater than 0 or equal to 0 or less than 0. A question on surds and indices was given, where there were 3 statements, and all the statements were very easy to check. There was a statement like under root of 4 multiplied by under root of 16 is equal to under root of 64, which was a very easy question. So all of these 3 statements you could have checked readily and you could have solved the question. A question based on numbers, which is on base system conversion, where it was given that 52 written in base system B is 2 times 25 written in base system B. So what we can do is we can try to convert both these numbers from base B to base 10, which gives you a very simple equation, which is 5B plus 2 is equal to 2 times 2B plus 5. Once you solve this, you get the value of B. So all these questions are, 1 minute to 1.5 minute kind of questions, which you can solve. There was a question on set theory where a set of numbers was given. The numbers given were perfect squares, which is 1, 4, 9, 16, etc. And we had to find out which of the operations, which was addition or multiplication or division of these numbers, was closed under a particular operation. A set being closed under a particular operation was explained in the question itself. So you know that when you multiply a perfect square with another perfect square number, you always get a perfect square. So we can easily say that a product of the numbers, the multiplication of the numbers will be a closed set under the given operation. A question on surds and indices was given, where r was equal to a raised to b multiplied by x raised to b. And later on, the value of r was also given, which was r equal to 2a raised to 2b. So we can straight away compare both the expression and we can get the value of x, which was an absolute sitter. There was a question on circle. 3 tangents were given to a circle, and those 3 tangents could make a triangle. We had to find out the perimeter of the triangle. So again, this was a solvable question. A question on polynomials, where 3x cube minus 9x square plus kx minus 12 was given it was given that it was divisible by x minus 3. So according to remainder theorem, what we can do is we can put x equal to 3 and equate the remainder to 0. This will help us get the value of k. And once we get the value of k, we can put that into the expression. And as we know, one of the factor is x minus 3. We can factorize and find out the other factor. A question on number system where we had to find out number of zeros in 77 factorial, right? Anybody and everybody would understand how to find out the number of zeros at this stage, because this was a simple concept taught in QA1 level. Okay, so if you know the concept, it was the 30-second question, and I hope every cat taker at this stage knows this concept. Okay. Question mapping on moderate questions. There was a question on ratio proportion where a plus b upon b minus c was equal to c plus d upon d plus a. What we have to do is we have to cross multiply here and then find out which of the option we are able to verify in terms of the simplification of a, b, c, and d. There was a question on logarithms, y equal to log 2x and y equal to 2 log x. So these are the two curves, two logarithmic curves, and we have to find out the number of points of intersection of both these curves. So when you want to find out the number of points of intersection, you can directly equate the values of y. And once we equate the two expression, we get two values of x, one of them being 0. You should understand that if x is 0, logarithm cannot be defined. So although we get two values, one of them need to be discarded. And that was the small catch that was involved in this question. Otherwise, the question was very direct. There was a question on inequality where y was greater than 2x and y was greater than 4 minus x. So what we have to do is we have to find out the region on the graph paper where both these inequalities are satisfied. And accordingly, we have to select a particular quadrant when both of these together are satisfied. A question on coordinate geometry where points P and Q were dividing line segment AB. The ratio of division for point P was 2:3. So we can say that AP is 2/5 of the distance. And similarly, for point Q, the ratio of division was 3:4. So we can say that AQ is 3/7 of the distance. And finally, the difference between AP and AQ was given as 2. So we can equate the difference with 2, and we can get the value of the overall distance from A to B. There was a question on triangles where the diagram was given in the question, and it was a right angle triangle. An angle X was marked in the question, and what we had to do is we have to tally the sum to 180, which can give you the value of X, Y, and Z, and accordingly, X can be figured out. There was a question on probability where 2n consecutive numbers were to be assumed. And out of these 2n consecutive numbers, we have to select n plus 1 numbers at random. And we had to find out the probability where the numbers are co-prime numbers. The HCF of the numbers, they are not co-prime. The HCF of these selected numbers was 1. Okay, so you can make a simple assumption over here that n equal to 4. Right, this is just a value that I'm assuming. Okay, so if you take n equal to 4, your 2n becomes 8. So you write 8 consecutive numbers, and you take n plus 1 numbers at random, which is 5 numbers at random. You select any 5 numbers, their HCF is always 1. So the probability of HCF being 1 is equal to 1. So it's a 100% probability-based question. Question mapping on moderate but time-consuming questions. There was a polynomial given. This was the polynomial x minus 1 whole raised to 4 plus 4 into x minus 1 whole cube plus 6 into x minus 1 square plus 4 into x minus 1 plus 1. Now this question can be solved taking the binomial coefficient, the sum of the binomial coefficient, but students might not realize that, and therefore what they will do is they will try to expand each and every bracket that is given. So that way it takes a long time to solve this question, and that's why it's a time-consuming question. A question on logarithm where log 2 to the base 10 was equal to a, log 3 to the base 10 was equal to b, and we had to find out log 12 to the base 5. So we had to first apply change of base, which is log 12 upon log 5, and then we have to write everything in terms of log 2 and log 3. A question based on coordinate geometry where y is equal to 3/4 of x plus 6, that was the equation of line. And there was another parallel line which was at certain distance, and therefore here you had to apply the distance formula between two parallel lines, which is the modulus of C1 minus C2 upon under root of A square plus B square. Using that formula, you'll find the coefficient, the constant term for the second line, and then you can get the equation of that second line. I think 1 was the constant term for the second line. A question based on numbers where X was the HCF of three numbers, X, Y, Z. So what you can do is you can assume three numbers, X, Y, and Z, and take X as the HCF of all three numbers, right? So on the basis of this assumption, you can verify the four statements that are given, and only one of the statement turns out to be true. So you can select that as the right option. A question based on numbers again, where n was divided by a product of 17 minus 11, 17 square plus 11 square, 17 cube plus 11 cube, and 17 raised to 4 plus 11 raised to 4. Now, there is a small catch here in this question that the degree of the divisor is 10, and therefore the degree of the remainder must be, the degree of the number should be more than the degree of the divisor so that it is perfectly divisible, right? There was only one such option whose degree was greater than 10, right? But again, the students will not be able to realize that, and what they will do is they will try to divide each and every option by the product of all these four brackets, and that's why they'll find that the question is really time consuming. If you can get the twist that was there in the question, right, you can solve this question within 20 to 30 seconds, but it was very difficult to get that. A question on surds and indices, where this particular expression was given. A lot of students might get scared by this expression, but this kind of questions are generally doable if you know how to solve them. So just observe this expression. I have highlighted certain parts in red. Okay, the part which is highlighted in red, it's a repetitive part, and you have to take the repetitive part as x. Once you assume that as x, and then you try to solve the expression, you can solve it. Question mapping on difficult level questions. There was a question on clocks and calendars where the clock was losing 2.5 minutes per day. Now, this was an extremely difficult and calculative question. Not only you need to get your calculation right, but you should also know the concept of gaining clock and losing clock in order to solve this correctly. A question where a relation was to be established between sides of triangle, square, hexagon, octagon, and nonagon. And once you establish the relation, based on that, you have to choose a right option that which of the ratios will not be an integer ratio. There was a question on probability, where probability of the product of numbers showing up on the dice was divisible by 5. And it was already given that all the dice are showing you odd numbers. So there are only three possibilities, 1, 3, and 5. And for the product to be divisible by 5, at least one of the 5 dice should show 5, right? So it is at least one of the dice showing 5 kind of a question, right? But to reach there, it takes a lot of time for the students to realize what is going on. And that's why it might be either a time-consuming question or a difficult question for a lot of students. A question on circles was given where two tangents were given to two circles, and the tangents were intersecting at right angles. So the diagram was given in the question where two of the tangents were at right angle. There was one circle already placed in the diagram, and we have to make one more circle which will be tangential to the original circle and both the lines that are given. Now, in such kind of question where both the tangents are at 90 degree, the ratio of the radii of the larger circle to the smaller circle is root 2 plus 1 upon root 2 minus 1. So this is the concept you can establish, and you can use it straight away whenever needed. Do watch the video solution to understand this concept in detail. Here we come to expected attempts in QA section. So this is how the question mapping looks like based on whatever we have discussed so far. We had discussed 9 questions at easy level. So we expect you to solve most of these questions. So expected attempts from this level question will be 8. Moderate questions, there were 6 of them. Again, we expect you to solve a good number of questions out of this. So that is 5. Moderate but time consuming, you can still solve 2 questions out of 6, and difficult questions out of 3, we expect you to solve 1. This makes us reach a total number of attempts, the total number of expected attempts as 8 plus 5 plus 2 plus 1, which is 16 attempts out of 25 within 40 minutes time limit. This is how the percentile mapping looks like. So as discussed, expected attempts should be 16. We expect around 85% accuracy, and therefore 14 of the 16 attempts should be correct, 2 incorrect. That puts the net score to 40 marks. So a net score of 40 marks become our 98 percentile. The scores for 95 percentile, 90 percentile, and 80 percentile are 30 and 20. And somebody who is having quant as one of his strengths should definitely look to aim at higher percentile, something like 99, 99.5, or even 100 percentile, which are available at 45, 52, and 64 respectively. Since last 2 to 3 analysis, I've been stressing on the number of easy and moderate questions. So let's just go back to the previous slide and understand this. If you just capitalize on this easy and moderate level questions, that is this 8 and this 5, I hope you are able to see my cursor. Okay, 8 and this 5, if you are able to focus on this 13 questions only, then also 13 3s is 39. So if you are getting 13 net correct, you'll still land somewhere between this zone, which is 98 to 95 percentile. Okay, so in order to score around 95 to 98, you do not need to touch the difficult level questions at all. Even difficult plus time consuming will not be even required. If you just concentrate your effort and time on the easy and moderate level question, you are still able to get 95 to 98 percentile in quant. So that was it from my side. I'll hand over to Srinivas sir for DILR section analysis. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shivam sir. I think I need to be made host. Yeah, thank you, sir. Hey, hi guys. So let me take you through the DLR section analysis. I guess all of you guys are getting anxious, maybe about 40 days to CAT and about and you may be thinking that there is a lot to revise and a lot to learn, and we're into the middle of our open mocks, solid open, or I mean, in the middle of our open mock season. I mean, in our EOM season, we're in the middle of it. So therefore, all right now is the time. So, but you don't have to really panic about this, but still 40 days is a good time to consolidate from where you are. A lot of effort has already gone in. So with just about 40 days to go, so dovetailing happens pretty quickly. You don't have to worry about it because the foundation takes a lot of time. So, and then from there, the culmination into that, the skill development from there would hardly take any time. Therefore, the fine tuning is for the stage that you are at. So therefore, don't panic. But ensure that the next 40 days you put in sufficient effort, right, so that you'll be able to recall the concepts well within the given time, right, and apply them. So that should be the idea, because I understand at this point in time how the people, how the students would get little anxious because we are getting closer to the exam, and you understand that okay, you're in the middle of this particular season. So if there are about 20 mocks that we are writing, so we are already about the 10th mock that we are taking. So therefore, some of you may be over judgmental about yourself. Hey, I'm still at this particular stage. It is still not happening. So whatsoever be the situation, good, bad, ugly, don't bother. Stay focused for the next 40 days. That should make you to it. That should take you through. So here we go. Nevertheless, let's take a look at this well-balanced paper. This is really one of the well-balanced paper. So there were a couple of sets which were for offering, and there were sets already which were also a little tedious. So it's a completely balanced paper. Let us take a look through this particular paper. What should be the good score? What should one should have done it here? Right. So as I keep telling, no, so if you're at the beginner, it's a complete no. So if you're a beginner now, so 40 days to CAT and you think that I'm still the beginner, then somewhere you are underrating yourself or undermining your abilities. So now you should be either at the intermediate level of your learning, or you must be at the advanced level of learning. Let's think about it. If you're advanced level of your learning or intermediate level of your learning, how the paper should look like. So as I keep telling again, it's important that you always plan the paper, especially the DILR section. You got to understand, in the sense, don't look at one set at a time. It may be a good idea for you to take a look at 2-3 sets at once. Right? Yeah. So 2-3 sets at once, maybe that could be a better idea as you go along. So therefore, never try to look at one set at a time here as you are doing this. And therefore, although the strengths and weaknesses, understanding yourself is always a good thought. So therefore, if you're a DI guy, LR guy, so therefore you can start on that note. What I meant by starting with the strength is that builds confidence as you go along. Some people are chucked out, or they're chalked out for DI. Some people are cut out for the LR. So in the sense, like, if you have that kind of mindset, like where LR is a better bet and first few sets seems to be a DI, don't bother. You start with an LR. But you are a pure DI guy, look for a pure DI and you start. Always the way you start, you got to start with one of your strengths. That always makes a lot of sense. And be mindful about MCQs and non-MCQs. Don't take up the questions which are non-MCQs right in the beginning. That's a theta question. Right? Always start with something where there is a reconfirmation on the numbers that you are getting, the options that you are getting. So that's always a good thought, right? And also, like when you're doing that, classify the sets as easy, medium, difficult, and then go along. So let's take a look here. I'll let know what I meant by the balanced paper. This was the first set out there. The distances between the house and office, or house and house, or office and house, something like that was given in the beginning. So that was the first set. So trust me, there were 2 doable questions here. So how you should have done this particular set is, if you have taken this, which means if you have selected this particular set, sequenced it, and you selected to do this particular set, what you've got to do is always remember, in the DI kind of set especially, you don't have to tackle 3 out of 3 questions or 4 out of 4 questions. Rather, you can tackle 2 out of 3 questions. That's always a better bet. In fact, that's how the mind also stays active. The moment you say that, hey, I'm not in favor of doing all 3 of them, I want to do 2 of them, the mind becomes choosy. Now it starts picking the questions that you should be focusing upon. Because one of the questions was really lengthy, it was taking more time. In fact, that was the first question, I guess. Right? The other 2 questions were easily doable. So therefore, if you have tackled 2 out of 3 questions, I think you could have done this particular set maybe in about 5 minutes time. Right? Maybe in about 5 minutes time, you could have done this particular set. All right, that's how it could have looked here. Right? Yeah. So that's one of those particular sets here. All right, that's one of those particular sets. In about 5 sets, 5 minutes time, you could have done 2 out of 3 questions. Except the first question, the other 2 questions were easily doable. You could have rather focused on that. Reading the data would have taken some time. Therefore, I'm saying that 5 to 6 minutes, you could have done about 2 questions here. All right, and then there was another set here. So where there was something like on the telecom, the subscribers found between December and March, and then areas were about 20 areas. So they divided this into 20 different areas, and there were questions built on this. Of course, the questions were a little lengthy. Again, 2 out of 3 questions were easy, friends. So if you would have tackled, see, always, if your preferences are right, in the sense, have you been thinking about, okay, I don't want to do all the questions, so then always you always get time to do more and more questions, because there will be always one question which can be tedious even in DI. Try to duck that particular question. If you can duck that particular question, trust me, so it can make your life a lot more easier. Lot more easier. So therefore, again, 2 out of 3 questions could have been a better bet out here. That's my thing. That's my take. 2 out of 3 could have been better, but you would have easily done in about 5 minutes time. So based on your speed of calculation, etc., you could have just done it about 5 minutes time. 2 out of 3 questions. So again, it qualifies as the first round question. Right? You would have done this in the first round itself. Well, all right, and to move further from here. Right, then we had the LR set coming up after this. Trust me, this was the sitter, right? This was a typical sitter. So anybody could have done this particular set in 5 minutes times. Easy condition, short sentences, right? And then, so there was just about 8 days, 6 events, 2 off days. So as you read through, your hand will be itching. You would be thinking that, okay, let me do it right away and finish it off, kind of, right? This was such a sitter. Everybody should have done this particular set. 3 out of 3 questions were possible, flat in about 6 minutes time or 7 minutes time, depends on your reading speed. So right, about 6 or 7 minutes, 3 out of 3 questions. This could have been quite comfortably possible, right? It's around one set again. So here, all right, now 10 to 12, that's the extension of this particular set, the next set from here. So this also very similar in the sense this was also a sit-up, but the thing is like it was a little lengthy to read. That's it. It was taking a little more time to read. This was all the length of the set was about. And all the questions had a very definitive answers. All right, now all questions were framed out on the very definitive way. So therefore, it was also easy to work out on these particular questions. Therefore, this was also a sit-up. One could have considered this as well. Might have taken a little more time. But again, I'll know this was one of the easier questions. All right, so then you had this particular question. So far all right, the journey looked pretty smooth. You would have felt that okay, it's really going well, in the sense you would have read through 3 or 4 sets. You would have said that okay, I can technically do each one of those particular sets. DI fellows with DI. If somebody is in favor of DI, they could have started with DI. Somebody was in favor of LR, they could have started with LR. In the first 4 sets, technically, I would suggest that you read 4 sets, pick from there, you read another 4 sets, and then you can pick from there, something like that, based on say 6 to 8 sets, whatever be the number of sets. You can kind of like divide them into two groups, and then work out on the first group, work out on the second group, divide the questions into round 1 and round 2 kind of sets, and then start working on them. That's what you could have done. So you would have felt that okay, the first group of questions went really well. You did about 3 sets, 4 sets by now, so all of them seems to be okay, doable kind of. You might not have done every single question, but as I said, like all 4 sets were kind of doable. Suddenly it comes to a grinding start. There was a huge set about the trading. Right now, there was how many stocks were sold, how many stocks were bought. So, and then weeks high, weeks low, and then like it went on and went on and went on. There were some symbols like alphas and betas, the standard deviation. There was a lot to understand. You would have technically ducked this particular question, or you could have ducked it first. In the sense, you should not have taken it immediately. Probably this can be taken towards the end. If there is still that luxury of time with me, that's when this could have been considered. Right now, this can be a speed breaker. If somebody would have simply gone into this and wasted their time, they would have realized that they would have wasted their precious time. All right, unless it's been taken towards the end. Towards the end, yes, you had that luxury of time. You could have come back and solved about 2 out of 3 questions maybe, or 1 out of 3 question maybe, based on the time that was available. Therefore, this is a round 2 question. This shouldn't have taken during the round 1. Rather, this should have been taken during the round 2, because this takes a lot of time to understand as well, because there was a lot to read, lot to understand before you solve the questions. Therefore, on the face of it, see, it's all about not the second look. While you are doing the analysis, remember it's always the second look. But on the first look at this particular question, this could have taken time. Therefore, it should be done in the round 2. This can be the first set I'm talking about. One should have considered doing it in the round 2. Therefore, I'm saying that it's a very well balanced paper, in the sense there were a lot of sets in the beginning which could have been done in the round 1. I'm not saying each one of them, but there were sufficient number of them which could have done in the round 1. So here we go. There was a set here. All right, now there was one person, Mr. Jungli, right, and this person was given a task of getting the animals for zoos. So, and this was really the tricky one. All right, this was not at all a comfortable set to be done. So unlike you did 2 LR sets, of course, this was also one of the LR sets, let's say, but there was a little bit of number game was also happening. The animals were moving between the cages whenever the vehicle has stopped in front of the zoo. So therefore, this set was very time consuming. For this paper, this was very time consuming. See, it's always about a relative measure. The way you did the four sets, and the moment now you look at this particular sets, it becomes way too time consuming. All right, therefore, this could have been avoided. Maybe this could be the last set that you do kind of, okay, there is a time towards the end. I could already kind of did most of the other sets. Therefore, I want to take it towards the end. That's fine. That could be a fairer decision. But never you touch this in between. All right, you will not fall for the zoo. Okay, particular kind of a scenario for a zoo, 5 animals, nice numbers, 25 animals. No, you will never fall for that. All right, now that you would have felt that you would have fell for this particular set, I'm sure all right, then you would have wasted a lot of your time. And thereby your scores might have dipped as well. So here we go. All right, now therefore this could have taken a lot of time, although there were 4 questions. This was one of the tricky sets out here, the lengthy as well as tricky set. And here comes another set, which was a highway. All right, this was a highway. There were some numbers given about 1 day and test matches, and there were 2 DI questions on this, which could have done in no time. All right, now this was a highway, basically, in the sense you would have done it so fast. The way you drive the vehicle on a highway, this set you could have done it like at that lightning speed. Right, about 2 questions. I'm still saying that about 4 to 5 minutes could be the time that you have taken. So there were enough line graphs here, bar graphs here. Doesn't matter. But then the questions were so simple. All right, this was one of the sets that you would have done in the round 1. All right, you could have taken it in the round 1. So here was a question 22 to 25, although I don't rate it as a difficult set or something, but all the questions were, this was the only set in this paper where all 4 questions had the theta answers, type in the answer type. Because it was the theta type, therefore there was no confirmation on the answers that you were getting. Therefore, I would be wary about this particular set. I might not have taken up in the beginning. I'd have said that, okay, this also I will take it up in the round 2, but it is pretty doable set. Only catch in this particular set is, okay, all questions were theta questions. There is no reconfirmation on the direction that you are heading. You might be heading in the right direction. If you have misunderstood something, you might be heading in the wrong direction. There was no reconfirmation on the numbers that you are getting as the response to these questions. And then I say that, okay, be wary, don't take it up in the beginning, take it up towards the end, which means after doing the other sets. So therefore, if you take all in all, there were 5 sets which were pretty doable. Right, one set on trader stocks and the other one set on the trading, that's a stocks. So they were talking about 4 stocks, that is one set, probably that round 2. The other one is the zoo set, which is the round 2. The third one is this particular set right in front of you, where the interviews are conducted in 6 rounds, or at 6 elimination rounds. This is another one. So except these 3, remaining 5 were pretty sitters, right? 5 of them were pretty much doable. So and then like these were the 3 things which would have decided where we're moving from 95 to 100. So how you tackle these 3 sets would decide between 95 to 100. Otherwise, the accuracy in the remaining 5 sets would have decided up to 95, where you stand up to 95, how many sets you could have chosen and you would have done through, right? So that's about this particular test technically. Like this particular section, DILR section of this particular sets. So if you look at it, 100 percentile, maybe about 20 attempts, This is the ballpark figures, somewhere about this particular figure. So I was talking about these 5 sets. If you look at the difficulty level, friends, there were 3 easy sets or 2 moderate sets, whatever. These 5 sets were kind of doable. 5 sets were doable. Maybe I will call that zoo set as the most difficult set there. So other 2 were time consuming sets. The remaining, the trading one was a time consuming sets, and that the 6 phases of interviews, elimination rounds of interviews, that's a little of time. It's more than time consuming. You tend to consume more time because there is no reconfirmation on the answers that you are getting. Therefore, you become extra cautious, and hence you tend to go slow. Had there been answer options for that questions, then definitely that also would have become one of the round 1 questions. So here we go. Now this was kind of it. Therefore, getting up to 95 percentile was just not a challenge, because there were about 5 sets here. 5 sets here. Now tackling 12 questions out of those 5 sets was pretty doable. I would rather think that, okay, so up to 95% was kind of achievable in this particular paper, provided you would have kept your calm, composed, and then you would have looked for those particular 5 sets out there. So okay, that would have taken you through about 95 percentile. Of course, 98 percentile was also not quite challenging in this particular set, not quite challenging, provided you would have kind of discovered these 5 sets out there. Right, coming to the overall, friends, because we are at the end of all 3 sections. Coming to the overall, this was what in store for 80 percentile. The overall score is about 73 marks. At 90 percentile, the overall is about 89 marks, and so on. Right. So therefore, that's this particular paper analysis for you. I hope all of you enjoyed and you got your inputs from this particular analysis. Stay blessed. We will see you again. Bye till then.